About the storage management, the volume manager is actually your main source of changing anything that relates to resources on the unit, especially where it concerns data storage. As you can see, we can administer both units separately, adding hard drives, expanding, starting over, deleting, creating iSCSI targets and whatnot is all happening right in here. Interesting though is the smart info section that you have here that will actually allow you to select disk per disk and check if it made any errors, what the temperatures are and everything else. So we can select one hard drive, click on the smart info, and it will actually read out all the data. This is pretty advanced stuff. Nothing you can do wrong with it, just informational. You can't change any data. So if you need information about hard drives or to fine-tune a problem and find what the source could be of disk failing constantly, you might check the error rate in here and stuff like that. And of course there's HDD management, where we can enable or disable the write cache. This is not really managing a hard disk, but it's an option on the unit. Enable write cache will actually deliver you a fraction more performance in general. So the next thing is the file sharing. Now you can see we have Win and Mac OS. I'm just quickly going to close all these open items down. So Win Mac OS, you can enable Windows file servers, which is actually Samba. You can optimize it and do other stuff. One of the things I really like about the current NAS servers is that you can enable a SMB recycle bin, which is called CIFS. The reason that this is a good option is that you prevent yourself from accidentally deleting data. Data removed from the NAS server is not easy to recover unless you have a recycle bin enabled. So I'm just going to click OK here, so it is enabled, and it will actually restart some services, so it might take a couple seconds to complete. But we can continue here with the domain and workgroup. Of course, you can add it to the domain or leave it in a local workgroup, and the Mac file service can be enabled or disabled. Now, one of the fun parts of Synology is that there's no predefined folder. So for every option that you activate, you can actually select which drive it should use for Time Machine on Apple or Apple TalkZone. There's an enable Bonjour printer broadcast, which means whenever you enable it, your server is actually broadcasted over the Mac network, and all that is just quite fine. I didn't change any settings. So for FTP, you can actually enable the FTP servers or disable it. Now the strange thing here is, even though it's not enabled here, if we go back to the user management in the privileges and application settings, you can see some users have access even though it's not enabled. So maybe somehow this can be linked. Whenever the service is not enabled, this is not enabled either. So well, that's just a minor thing and convenience that might confuse people. So you can enable it, you can set your connection settings, you can have several options applied to it, and you can even enable anonymous FTP, so people don't need a username and a password. So I don't need FTP right now. NFS, of course, for us as media players is quite an important feature, so we're just going to enable NFS and click OK. And the last item in the file sharing application here is the File Station. Now the File Station 3 enables you to access and manage the files with a browser, which is actually an integrated browser sort of type, and this will help you transfer data internally in the unit from one share to another much faster than using a PC. One of the newer features on the Synology NAS is actually the internet connection. We were used to having PPPoE connection settings, but one of the things they added right now is the router configuration, which we're going to see in a minute. So PPPoE will make the connection with the internet for you. The DDNS is actually the online system that you can use to connect to the NAS from over the internet by using a DIN DNS service. There's a firewall option in which you can configure some rules to allow clients or defend your NAS against certain attacks and stuff. And the router configuration itself then. The router configuration is actually quite a good feature that is added to the NAS server, and what it actually needs is you have to enable something, but I forgot to check what it was, so let's go again. configure router and port forwarding requires static IP. Please change your IP to static IP. Oh, that's it is. So you have to have a static IP address, which we're going to do quickly here. Let's just use manual configuration, leave the same settings and just click OK. Field value is invalid. Oh, you have to select something even though it's not connected, so let's do that too. And there we go. So there's a few inconsistencies with configuring the Synology NAS, but it's not a problem. We're just doing things as we go. So to set up your router, what the Synology will do, once you select the router you have, it will automatically configure the router firewall and settings on the unit. However, the list is not complete. So there's a couple of routers that are added by default. Mine is sadly not included, and I don't want to play around with this because I prefer to have manual control over whatever my router is configured and set to. So we're just going to leave it as is for now.